19, very important part of the numbers, very important part of the story. When I say my story, I really should say, although I've described my story, it's really been your story since I first imagined it in 2005. I've called it the greatest story ever told, part 2, and, well, the history of the future of us. And it's really the story of when mankind advances to the next level of human existence. Now, how does mankind advance to the next level of human existence? Well, we've described the biblical paradoxes and paradigms of this advancement of mind and perhaps soul, but, well, it's all ties, and I'll leave it at this, but part of the tying it to the biblical paradox and the paradigm and its connection to economics, which is at the heart of this story, the true nature of real economics. Because what I think I realized in 2005 is your reality, your view of economics is upside down. And, well, we have the tools to change our economics to one to advance a society as we move past a post-industrial society, as we move past, well, even a post-service society, because as we move forward, we will find a future in which the only way to have enough consumers is to find a new way to provide income to consumers or find new jobs that will not exist if you accept the limits of the paradigms of our current capitalist, communist structures, etc. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So let's talk about the significance of 19. Interestingly, as I've pointed out before, how many of you were born in a year that began with 19? Is that potentially predictive? And why, I might ask, does it say in the Quran all over it there's encoded the number 19? And, well, there's also a warning against debt. Now, that's interesting. A warning against debt is sort of built into the Islamic system of banking that is more equity-oriented. Well, one of the popular misconceptions in like I've heard it on TV, they say, okay, your children now are carrying around all this baggage of debt if you're a citizen of the United States. And so it's like, if you buy that, well, I've got a bridge to nowhere to sell you, because here's the deal. If you think about it, well, who is owed all these debts? Well, most of it's all, well, some of it's all between nations, which are just playing with each other's currencies, but basically, the debt is owned by the wealthy. Now, if we were to go and say, listen, it's time to pay all the debt back, who's going to pay all the debt? The people that don't have the money aren't going to pay it back. And, well, just go ask them how it's done, and you can argue how it's done, but ultimately it's done through a bankruptcy, a managed bankruptcy. And, well, I don't think those who have invested in the bonds of, well, nations falling under piles of debt will get the full amount back, maybe 50 cents on the dollar or less. And so the notion that all people own the debt of the nations and the rich get to keep their money is absurd, absurd, absurd. Anyway, beyond that, there is a problem, and there are many benefits to capitalism, but there is a problem with our practice of crony capitalism and crony communism. And the problem with all of the orders is, well, that they rely on political states that allow bureaucrats, well, and governments to interfere with the natural order of better business. And I'm not saying the natural order of better business is the chaotic order of laissez-faire capitalism without any consciousness of the grander scheme of things. No, I'm simply saying, and my proposal back then was simply go buy out all the economic interests, buy out the rich, buy them out at a premium, buy out the nations, buy them all out. What do they get bought out for? Shares in a new enterprise I call WeThePeopleOfEarth.biz. And we create a new monetary system. Well, how do we create it? Well, I won't go through details, but it's a sort of a conspiracy of the rich and the dear leaders of nations. And they say, you know what? Yes, we're going to merge our economic interests. That China's going to sell a piece of its action for a piece of the biz of We the People of Earth. And America's going to sell a piece of its action. Just think of it like this. We sell a third of our action of our nations to the world, so we all benefit by the rise of other nations. And then we create a new regime where we take the global potential of the technologies in America and unleash them throughout the world and allow our global enterprise to cross national boundaries in ways they've never been able to cross before, and to connect globally. And that doesn't mean that we create monopolies of enterprises, possibly oligopolies competing with each other, with one thought in mind: to provide better products and solutions to the consumers at all levels of our society. And yes, there must be levels of the society. Now, so how do you accomplish this? And interestingly, it really harkens back to all of the next big things that are prime numbers. That's right. Okay, let me go through them, and it's sort of interesting here. And if I had more time, well, I'm going to have more time eventually, because I'll just do another one of these every 15 minutes I want. Anyway, so here's the thing. Okay, so you got a big thing one, which I have articulated is monopoly. It's the ultimate power structure, and it was like way back to the caveman days, and the caveman became the caveman leader, and then the tribal leader, and then the king and the empire. And well, then we decided that wasn't fair anymore, and we replaced monopolies with what we call governments. But those were never, well, actually, see later on in Big Thing 3, the Greeks invented democracy in Sparta and practiced direct democracy, but we couldn't practice direct democracy in an age with thousands and millions of people. And, well, there's no direct democracy I know of really practiced today. We practice representative democracy. Well, what is representative democracy? It allows us to hire a representative to theoretically represent our interests, but they're representing the interests of an imaginary government or state or nation, and they're also representing their self-interest and the interests of other economic interests. And they're not only representing the interests of the people, and those interests are varied. So it's a sort of complex thing with the governments in the middle, and they're offering things that are really public resources, but those public resources get to be used by private companies for private capital. But, so you could ask, well, anyway, I don't want to get into all of that, but the airwaves of radio are public resources, and lots of natural resources are. Now, we can be instructed by sort of almost the fallacy and, well, the problems that were created, and actually it was done wrong in my mind when they started to try to introduce capitalism in Russia and China. They created a new models of crony capitalism with China's sort of state capitalism. But as you see if you read the recent articles, in China, corruption is very, very common. See, when a state bureaucratic society is involved in intricately, you allow lots of corruption. And, well, that's just sort of inherent. Now, how do we eliminate corruption? Some people say you will always have corruption. Let me take you through the numbers and describe how the prime numbers from 1 to 19. 1 is monopoly. 3 is democracy. That's us, okay? That's all of us, not just those with jobs, not just those with money, those with everything. And ultimately, you can't disenfranchise of the people or you have revolution. You're better off paying the people off somehow, and that gets us 5 to capitalism. And my plan is a combination of a monopoly of communism and capitalism, and, well, everybody will be a stakeholder and would get an income for at least survival and would get opportunities beyond that. Now, what were the primes that enabled this future beyond that? I've described to you Big Thing 7. Edison. No. And Franklin. Franklin discovered the power. Edison turned it into light. Without that, we could never have had Big Thing 11, which I've described as flat TV. But I see a very real vision of real 3D, real to real and real to real, where your reality, as you would know it, is now a reality show all over the world, and you might even make up fantasy illusions of reality or simulate future possibilities of reality, and so that's sort of interesting. But the next one is critical, and that was 13, the 1 and the 3, and that was the computer, and then after that, prime was the prime that I described, and I claimed as my own next big thing. And as I've described, any next big thing I've claimed is, well, yours. I've dedicated anything I might invent back to you. I've described everything on my mind as a derivative work of all of the knowledge of mankind. How can I possibly say I built this world or this future when it's built upon not only the knowledge, that the little knowledge I have, but it's built upon one premise, that you have the knowledge and the power, that we have the power to make the choices to change, and that we can create an enterprise beyond what you know as today's enterprise, because we have no global enterprise, but a global integrated enterprise of all the people of Earth. And what would be that? What would it be powered by? Number 17, virtual money. Virtual money we could create and print. If we discovered there were virtual profits somewhere in, well, maybe creating behaviors, we could distribute virtual money and virtual stock. But guess what? These would be done by computers. So those could be stocks that you couldn't cash in, because we would virtually force you to build your own retirement. We could build in planning systems. Now, I'm not saying to take away free choice from it, to make sure that people don't become a drag on a society from the bad choices they make. Well, anyway, I'm not going to architect that here, and it will have to take into account local customs and standards of behavior, and it will have to take into account free choice and human rights. But the future I have envisioned is a democracy, and a capitalist one at that. Because one point I might say is the democracy itself is a tyranny, and the problem is also it often is a tyranny of the stupid. If everybody is allowed one man, one vote, and, well, you really want the smartest people to help make the decisions, and you're not in a representative democracy, well, there's only, if you wanted the 5 or 10 smartest people, only 5 or 10% of them really knows. And so the rest are just influenced by the forces around them and whatever. So, in my vision, it's a combination of a democracy with your vote counting substantially, but also where those who are endowed by wealth because of their own achievements, which will be greatly enhanced because our plan was to be build more stars, they will vote their shares, and since they will have more shares, they will have influence on the outcome of the board of directors. Only that, they won't need influence other than the outcome of those that make the economic decisions of the world. Thank you, and I look forward to episode 20, but this is 19, and it is important.